off the Facebook. I need to live stream it on the. Can you make me admin? Are you admin?
I'm not admin. I don't think I am.
Because I did it off his account, but then it wanted his password, and I wasn't about to ask him for his password. I have it copied and saved, so if you just want to open up that.
Where is everyone?
We need him to come again to come see the inside.
Did anyone go get him?
Hey, Matt. Hey, Matt. Can you please get Muhammad Ayad?
Wait, no. So do it like that. No. I was at work. Wait, you said I wasn't even paying attention. I was at work. I just
got it like twice and just laughed.
I'm sorry. What did you say? Like the MC is this one? Oh, I'm sorry.
I already copied this today.
Yeah, but you have to do this. You have to copy the URL. Otherwise, it goes to the Google page. I don't know.
No, I want to do something off your page.
Just make yourself admin. Magic. Alright, fair enough.
Yeah, it was something I'll remember when I look see settings.
Oh, I'm going to look at that. So now that I read this, I just read I meant I didn't get your message.
Oh, I can't. You have to. Yes, Dad.
No, because Ronnie made me. Oh, of the ICA. Yeah, we could pull that page.
Is he coming? Oh, Ronnie has to do it. He has to make it.
Well done.
Can't wait to say it.
We're waiting for Muhammad Ayad.
No, you're fine. The first I didn't do it.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Signs of Allah. Indeed, the word punishment of Allah is proved true against the greater part of most of them. Still they do not believe. Verily we have put clamps tightly round their necks. Their heads are forced up, and they cannot see. And we have put a barrier in front of them, and a barrier behind them. And also we have covered them up in their disbelief, so that they cannot see. It is the same to them whether you warn them or you do not warn them. They will not believe. You can only warn such a person who follows the reminder, the warning in the Quran, and fears Allah most gracious, unseen. Therefore give such a person good news of forgiveness and most kind reward. Surely we shall give life to the dead, and we record what they send before judgment, and that which they leave behind in life, and we have taken record of all the things in a book of evidence. And put forward to them, and tell them by way of a story with a warning, about the companions of the city which was destroyed, when the messengers of Allah have come to it. When we sent 2 messengers to them, they rejected them both, so we strengthened them, the 2, with a 3rd. Truly we have been sent down as messengers to you. The people said, you are only beings like ourselves, and Allah, the most gracious, sends down nothing to be made known or disclosed. You do nothing but lie. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Thank you, brothers, for that beautiful recitation. I'd like to introduce the speaker of the night, Sheikh Ibrahim Kazaroni, after a loud salawat.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، نحمده ونشكره على ما هدانا، ونصلي ونسلم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. I know it's late in the afternoon, but the salawat doesn't say much, so الثانية بأعلى أصواتكم. Praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of the here and the hereafter. We praise Him for all the guidance that we receive, and we convey our salutation and greeting to the Holy Prophet of Islam and his pure progenies. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. قال الله العظيم في محكم كتابه: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. O you who believe, fasting has made obligatory on you as it was done on the nations before you, so that you may gain taqwa. By now it has become a kind of a norm that at the beginning of my lecture I recap on few issues that we left or covered during the last night or the night before. Since last night Imam Mardini presented here, I think it's appropriate to just go back one night and recap briefly on a couple of topics that we have covered so far. We began our conversation by looking at Khutbah Sha'baniyah, the sermon of Sha'baniyah, which is a well-known sermon. The Holy Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him and his pure progenies, delivered this the last Jum'ah or Friday of Sha'ban. He outlines and explains to those present the critical month that is coming and the vital responsibility that we have during this month. When we add the comments that he has outlined, we see that, we discussed this before, that yes, the abstinence from food and drink may have certain consequences, but it is the spiritual and the moral component of the fast which is the primary goal. On Thursday night, I addressed the concept of the door to heaven and the door to hell being closed. And I stated that although the phrase door in the context of the hadith is being used, it is the path which is intended, not a door as a physical door. Because when we look at the role of metaphor, parables, and similes in language to explain some critical issues and outline them, so this is a metaphoric use of language. Tonight, I want to go back to the verse again and focus on the first word. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. There is a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directed towards a particular group of people. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. O people who believe. Who are they? What is the working definition for a believer? Is it purely in the context of this worldly explanation, or there is something else to it? If we look at the moment we start discussing mu'minun, the believers, the conversation invariably goes towards what is our definition of humans in the first place. Because mu'minun, or the believers, are a unique group of people, but they are characteristically slightly different. So what we understand of a human being. If humans are defined as a member of a Homo sapiens, distinguished from other animals by superior mental development, power of articulation, and upright stance, then when we talk about mu'minun here, should direct us to a particular group or a worldview, then the understanding that says no, it's not what you have just referred to in trying to define a working definition, is one side of a human being. There is another side of human being that is being ignored. If we purely say member of Homo sapiens, that the only difference with other animals, that because they are superior in mental development and power of articulation, they can speak, can stand upright. Well, some other animals do it, and they mentally they are much more powerful than the rest of the animal kingdom. If that is the case, then mu'minun, we have to find a different definition for it. But if we go back to the story of Genesis, creation from an Islamic point of view, in which it introduces, in addition to this being member of Homo sapiens, which is haywan, it introduces another variable here, and that is the spiritual component of this entity. Then the whole thing becomes much more complex and detailed. Because now, when we look at the story, at least the few verses before we get to a verse about fasting, about beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, we have the story outlined that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enters into a conversation with the angels, informing them that I'm going to create a vicegerent, Khalifa on earth. And I command you, once it has been created, you have to go and do sujda and prostration in front of this entity. And then the verse goes about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created it. This is again metaphorical use of language. We have little bit of clay, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blows into it. So now we have worldly and spiritual, material and spiritual combined together. This story clearly, once we look at it, defines humans as much more complex entity rather than purely one-dimensional member of animal kingdom, that they simply stand on 2 feet, or they have much more superior intellectual. Once we understood it from this, there is a tension. By default, there is a tension between these two variables, the spiritual and the material. Rumi has the story about the way he says this. He narrates the story in his book. He says, uses metaphorical use of language again here. Majnoon, a mythical figure, was besotted by the beauty of Layla, that constantly wanted to travel from his home to go to see Layla. And Majnoon at the same time had a camel. The camel had a calf. So for Majnoon to be able to travel the distance, he would isolate the calf in the house and ride the camel towards his own destination. Whenever he was holding the camel properly, the camel would move into the direction that he wanted it. As soon as he became daydreaming about his beloved, the camel realized that he is not controlling it, so it turned direction and went back home, because it had a calf that it loved and she wanted to be there. So by the time the camel got home, he would realize that again the camel has not gone into the right direction, turned it around. When a couple of times it happened, Rumi concludes the relationship between your nafs and your soul is the relationship between the direction of the camel towards the calf and your direction towards your beloved. As long as you are in full control of your nafs and your ego, the camel, you can ride the camel into the right direction. The moment you let go, ego takes over and has a life of its own and moves you towards a different direction. Now, if we use this to indicate the challenge that we have during this month. On the one hand, the destiny is quite clear. We have to move into elevate ourselves and reach a status in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted us to be. But at the same time, we are dragged down and chained into this material life by our ego and nafs al-ammara. Islam, because of its own unique interpretation, does not believe that purely physical dimension or perfection from a physical direction is enough for one to become truly human. What we need to do is to balance the two, the physical as well as the spiritual. And if you now hear a couple of comments about Amir al-Mu'mineen sallallahu alayhi, he's asked about how to define al-muttaqun, the believers. فالمتقون, this is khutbah 193 in Nahj al-Balagha. It's a well-known khutbah in which one of his disciples comes to him and says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, give me a broad perspective on who are the true believers. Imam responds in a very kind of synopsis way, anecdotal, just few points. He's not content. And he insists for a much more detailed explanation, or a working definition as we call it today. Imam starts, فَالْمُتَّقُونَ هُمْ أَهْلُ الْفَضَائِلِ. If you want to see the muttaqun, the true believers, they have the entire good character within them. مَنْطَقُهُمُ الصَّوَابِ. When they speak truth. وَمَشْيِهُمُ التَّوَاضُعِ. When they walk, they are humble. غضوا أبصارهم عما حرم الله عليهم. Their eyes are closed from what Allah has made unlawful for them. And they put their ears to that knowledge which is beneficial to them. They remain in the time of the trial as though they remain in comfort. When they are being tested, they don't snap very quickly. Trial and comfort for them is the same. If there had not been fixed period of life ordained for each, their spirit would not have remained in their bodies even for a single second. The goal is somewhere else. They know they have to stay in this world and utilize this world for the benefit of the hereafter. But this is not their goal. The goal is somewhere else. Their hearts are grieved. They are protected against evil. Their bodies are thin. Their needs are scanty and little. And their souls are chaste. During the night, they stand on their feet reading portion of the Holy Quran and offering prayer in submission to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are not satisfied with their meager goods and do not regard their major acts as great. You can see them by the light in their face, and the khutbah 193 goes on and on and on, giving a detailed explanation of who al-muttaqin are. In a shorter version of this, he says that I used to have a friend, and that friend, I respected him and I considered him a noble character because he possessed certain characteristics that I only reserved for the believers. كان لي فيما مضى أخ في الله. I had a friend in faith. وكان يعظمه في عيني صغر الدنيا في عينه. What made him noble and worthy of my attention was that this material world to him was worth nothing. Ibn Abbas, after Amir al-Mu'mineen becomes a Khalifa, and goes to Baytul Mal and sees him sitting down, and he has a pair of slippers that he had mended it so many times that it had become so thick out of the pieces that he had added to this slipper to mend it. So Ibn Abbas asks Imam, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, you are Khalifatullah on earth. What is this? He said, Ibn Abbas, holding the slipper in his hand, he said, Ya Ibn Abbas, what do you think the worth of this slipper? Ibn Abbas says, nothing. It's not worth anything. He said, I swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that your worldly power and the material of this world is worth to me less than this slipper. If it wasn't for the fact that I have been given a responsibility to protect the poor, the needy, and take the right of those who have been marginalized within the community, I would have given you this power and you deal with it. But I have an obligation. Muttaqi is someone that is conscious. It's not just purely material life. Material life is being used as a mean to develop oneself for the hereafter. كان لي أخ في الله وكان يعظمه في عيني صغر الدنيا في عينه. In the past, I had a brother in faith, and he was noble in my view because the world was humble in his eyes. The needs of the stomach did not have a sway over him. These days, we become hungry as we get close to iftar. We don't recognize anything. This animalistic goal of filling the stomach dictates to the point that we will leave everything behind until the food is consumed. He did not long for what he did not get. If he got a thing, he would not ask for more. He was humble, silent, and whenever he spoke, he silenced the others. He would not abuse anyone in an excusable manner. He would say what he would do and would not say what he wouldn't do. So practice and action and word, they all coincide. Now this is a long sermon, we can always discuss it in another time, but what is al-muttaqeen that the verse in the Holy Quran talks about? What kind of creature are they? If you look into the Holy Quran, there is a surah for Surah Al-Mu'minun. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ, that's the beginning of it. And if you look at it, and present the word, or ask Quran to come up with a working definition about who the mu'minun are, that Quran says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, or the believers. We come across a number of different factors that Quran outlines. Number one, on a personal capacity, alladhina hum fi salatihim khashi'un, when they offer prayer, khushu' and reverence in their prayer. Not telegraphically, within a few seconds we go through the prayer. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ, those who avoid vain amusement. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اجْتَنِبُوا كَثِيرًا مِنَ الظَّنِّ إِنَّ بَعْضَ الظَّنِّ إِثْمٌ وَلَا تَجَسَّسُوا وَلَا يَغْتَبْ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضًا. These are characteristics on a personal. You don't backbite, you don't slander, you don't lie, etc., etc. These days, unfortunately, within our community, backbiting and slander is what we do on a regular basis, whether we are fasting or not. If we don't like the face of someone, that will be enough to justify whatever we want to do with them. As far as your social responsibility, again, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَهَاجَرُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَهَاجَرُوا وَجَاهَدُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Struggle. You work hard. وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ. You encourage other people to do good and you discourage them from doing bad. These are on a social responsibility. There is another hadith that I came across it as I was searching this morning from the Holy Prophet in Bihar al-Anwar. He says, somebody narrates, سمعت رسول الله يقول في خطبته أيها الناس إن العبد لا يكتب من المسلمين حتى يسلم الناس من يده ولسانه. O people, you will not be put into the category of a Muslim until other people are protected from your hand and your tongue. Which means what? We believe that in Islam, whoever converts or comes into Islam and says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, 4 components or variables, or say 4 parts of his life must be protected. His life, his honor and dignity, his wealth, and his jasad. So when somebody says ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, we're supposed to respect, in addition to the inherent dignity that exists in all human beings. We will not be considered as part of a Muslim community unless other people are protected from our hands and our tongues. وَلَا يُنَالُ دَرَجَةُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ حَتَّى يَعْمَنُ أَخُوهُ بِوَاثِقِهِ وَجَارُهُ بِوَادِرِهِ. And you will not become part of a believer until your fellow faith members, your fellow brothers in faith, they are protected from and not harmed by you, and your neighbors are protected from their mischief and rudeness. And finally, وَلَا يَعُدُّ مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ, and then that's a totally different story. So, mu'minun, based on these interpretation that Quran has, that humans have both components of the material and the spiritual component. Fasting is supposed to be the medium by which brings the inner to the tongue to the action outside, according to hadith from the Holy Prophet. That Iman is faith from within, a conviction in the heart. That conviction is translated into the tongue in which you utter certain words, and then it is manifested in action outside. If you say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, I have faith, but you don't practice it, Quran is quite clear. Cherry picking in Islam is not acceptable. تأمرون الناس بالبر وتنسون أنفسكم. You command people to do good, but you forget about yourself. Or نؤمن ببعض ونكفر ببعض. We pick and choose whichever is suitable for us. These are rejected in Islam. Fasting is supposed to become the coordinator. That if due to our way of life there are discrepancies or contradictions between what we say, what we believe, and what we do, fasting is supposed to coordinate and balance these two, all these components together. Because during this period, this month, we have to pay attention. Our words, as I indicated in previous lectures, we have to be mindful of what we say, what we hear, how we behave, how we deal with other people, etc., etc. So, mu'minun are individuals that not only human beings, yes, they are, but they have faith, and that faith is translated into verbal utterance, which by itself shown and embodied in the practical life. If we say we believe, but we don't practice it, if we say that yes, we believe, Quran says that we shouldn't dig dirt, وَلَا تَجَسَّسُوا. These days, strange, within our own community, the people are digging dirt about other members of the community, to become insulting and demean them. And then they come to the mosque, they offer prayer, and they fast and everything else. Riba and backbiting is a norm. Slander is a norm. These negative traits are the ones that we really need to focus upon during this month. As we move through the month, the negative traits are stripped and positive traits are imposed and brought into our life. Inshallah. And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from all the sinful and disobedience, and forgive the soul of our deceased, as well as hasten the return of our living Imam, inshallah. Please recite Surah Al-Fatiha. We have Arba'een and the Isbu' of few of members of our communities tomorrow. Keep them in your mind as you recite Fatiha for them. قبلها الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. Any questions? Sometimes they are referred synonymously, they are used synonymously, because taqwa is God-centric nature, but God becomes literally the base, the center by which we structure everything. God is present. Sometimes we see mu'minun are being referred to as a group of people slightly lower than the muttaqun. They haven't reached that highest status where God dictates everything in their life. If you look at a number of tafsirs or commentaries on the Holy Quran, Al-Mizan 1, for example, you see that Allama Tabatabai, may God bless his soul, as he reaches these categories, because he comes from a more mystical interpretation. As a philosopher and a mystic, so he explains the minor differences or the nuance that exists between these two categories. Normally, under linguistic language that we use, normally it's used as synonymous. But the verse itself, 183, Surah Al-Baqarah, is clearly identifies that you have to be a believer, that ultimately you become muttaqi. So that journey from Iman has to be there as prerequisite that ultimately takes you towards taqwa. Taqwa is a unique character. Again, if you go to Nahj al-Balagha, Amir al-Mu'mineen sallallahu alayhi has extensive comments about taqwa. And sometimes I wonder if Rumi's metaphor of a camel and Majnoon has not been inspired by a hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen in which he refers to taqwa as camels or any transportation, means of transportation that fully under control of the rider. And nafs, or people who are under the control or the shackle of nafs, to be riding on wild animals that they cannot control. So the animal dictates where they go rather than they have to dictate. But the verse, Surah 183, Surah Al-Baqarah, clearly indicates that you need Iman, but you strengthen it until you become finally a muttaqi. Hey, Brother Muhammad.
Okay, my question was, if somebody praying in their faith doesn't want Allah appears right up front of them.
If God, Brother Jamal.
God, when somebody is good faith,
Yes.
can God appear right in front of them?
Well, this question was asked, Amir al-Mu'mineen sallallahu alayhi. The question is, if you really have faith and submit to the command of God, can God appear in front of you? It's an excellent question, because Amir al-Mu'mineen was asked the same question. And can you see God? When he was talking about praying to God, he said, how can I pray to a God that I don't see? You will not be able to see Allah or God with your eyes, but you certainly can see Allah with the eyes of the heart. So, Brother Muhammad, if somebody submits to the command of God and truly has faith, they can feel Allah in their heart rather than see Allah with their eyes. Because Allah cannot be seen, but it can be felt in the believer's heart. You're welcome. Any other question? Why is it sisters are very quiet? We don't get anything from the sisters. We've been trying to encourage the sisters to come up with some kind of a question. I think what we need to do, in case they are shy from raising their hand and asking question, how about papers at the beginning of lecture being distributed to everyone, so those people want to ask a question, they can remain anonymous, and they can give the piece of paper to somebody, and then we go through them. One night it happened. Few of the questions came from the sisters, but then everything finished. Yes, brother.
There are so many characteristics. Let's say someone meets most of them in a distant sum. What would you characterize?
Well, the definition, I mean, if we want to classify, the parameter to the class is open. As you go one level, if you go to the story of, for example, Mi'raj, the ascension of the Holy Prophet to heaven, as we read the story, it becomes clear that even in every of these categories, we have various levels. Prophet Ibrahim, grand prophet, still asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to show him how Allah resurrects the dead. And the reply comes, أَوَلَمْ تُؤْمِنْ? Don't you believe? Yes, but I want my heart to be satisfied. Now this is Prophet Ibrahim, and then you have Ali on the other side. لَوْ انْكَشَفَ الْغَطَاء مَزْدَدْتُ يَقِينًا. All the veils to be removed, Ali's understanding and faith, not even a small amount is going to increase to it. These are two different categories. This is why we have a hadith, عُلَمَاءُ أُمَّتِي أَفْضَلْ مِنْ أَنْبِيَاء بَنِي إِسْرَائِيل. They're all believers, but depending on where they position themselves, they fall into various classes or levels as they go up. There is another hadith from the Holy Prophet ﷺ that says, لو عرف أبو ذر ما في قلب سلمان لكفره. If Abu Dhar really understood what goes into the heart of Salman, because it's beyond his level, he would have said that, look, Salman is kafir. So two disciples of the Holy Prophet, so much emphasis on both nobility and respect. Amir al-Mu'mineen goes, Imam Hassan, they go to him, and even up to today we have a hadith about Abu Dhar, but there is a difference between the two. One becomes a Salmanu minna ahl al-bayt, the other one is purely disciple. So these levels do make a difference. Even in our scholars these days, you come across a scholar that purely, when it comes to Irfan, they admit it. Since you mentioned, there is a story about Marhum Imam rahmatullah alayhi, when he was young. He went to Mashhad one day and came across one of the well-known mystics of the day. And he asked him, we have been told that you possess that special name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Bismillah al-A'zam. Can you part that and give it to me? Imam thought for a while, the other person, the mystic, thought for a while, and he said, if I give it to you, will you promise not to abuse it ever? Imam thought for a while and he said, I can't do that. See the honesty both sides. These are different levels. I lived in Najaf with Marhum Imam for many years, and I saw him. Despite this, we see the mystical scholar comes and says, if I give you this, will you promise? Would you undertake? And Imam, honest as he was, said, I cannot promise that. So these are various levels of the spiritual enlightenment that comes through hard struggle. There are those who may go through the month of fasting, and the only thing that we struggle probably come and control few of the negative traits that we have had. That's better than nothing. But there are others who would stand on the night of power And they don't need even to speak. A glance at the sky and light comes up. These are different categories. We don't even comprehend or perceive where they are. But these are various levels.
Different subject. It's something that we argued about at home when we woke up late for sahur. There's the imsak and then there's the pleasure time. Why is there a difference in like 15 minutes between the two?
Well, a question was asked a few nights ago by the brother regarding these discrepancies that exist on various timetables. As a matter of norm, whether in Iraq, I lived a few years in Iran and other places, as a matter of norm, a precautionary step is that before the time of Adhan al-Subh, normally people are either minaret of the mosque or people driving on streets or some people just walking with a drum telling people that 10 minutes or 20 minutes before the time, imsak time. Which means what? Refrain from food, because as a matter of precaution, in case the assessment of time is not correct, you do not intrude into the true time and you negate your fasting. Yes, this is a precautionary step. That's one thing. There is another debate with regard to what we call a subh al-sadiq, which we discussed a few nights ago. There is this crack that appears in the darkness, literally at the lowest level of the sky. We call it ufuq. And we have subh al-sadiq and we have subh al-kadhib. The true one is this crack, very thin crack of light comes and then gradually expands and the night is over, the day begins. The subh al-kadhib, that crack appears, but then darkness takes over before another crack comes in. This is the debate. In areas where the ufuq and the point of contact between the sky and the earth is quite clear and transparent, we can clearly establish what it is, then that's fine. We can literally follow it up. But in other places, due to dust or anything else that is not visibility is not clear, then people say, okay, this light may be the kadhib one, the untrue one, and another 10 minutes or 15 minutes has to be added so that we make sure that we have moved into this. And that's the discrepancy that exists. For example, the timetable coming out of Majma has a totally different schedule to it than other people that they organize. Or even if you go to sites, various sites of various maraja, they have their own interpretation of this. There is at least let's call it convergence of opinion, major issues, but minor issues still are the difference. And depends whom you follow, this issue becomes, if you follow, for example, Sheikh Abdul Latif, then that's his view. Marhum Hussein Fadlallah has a totally different understanding. Other scholars in Najaf and so on. Wherever the ufuq is quite clear, it makes it easier. Even let's assume that the timetables are not there. You can actually go out. This month, everybody was talking about the beginning of the month on Tuesday. Muslims went out, and even Shias from our own community, California, New Mexico, and Arizona. Because the ufuq is clear, they took pictures and they sent them on Sunday night, which indicated Monday was the beginning of the month. While other scholars were talking about, no, it's still Tuesday. So if you are living in where we have clear ufuq, it's easy for you to get out and look around where the line between the sky and earth meet. That area around, say, if you keep the observing from around 3:45, say to 4:15, this ultimately you see this line appearing.
That's the time of what we call Subh al-Sadiq. And then, literally, that's the beginning of the time in which Adhan starts. But those who say Imsak 10-15 minutes before, just to be on the safe side, as a precaution. I can't hear you. In Jannah. Again, this is a metaphorical use of language. There are those who say because of the intoxication, spiritual intoxication that it has, and the only time in which we truly understand what intoxication means is to make similes with khamr in this world. We all are familiar with the effect of khamr on our physical reality. But we have no perception or comprehension of what does that kind of liquid do in your spiritual dimension. So a simile is being drawn. Some people interpreted it as purely literal. It's not, there is no such thing, and then began asking various questions. If khamr is haram here, then why is it allowed over there, etc., etc. But the verse, if you look at the context, that these people have struggled hard, have elevated themselves, they have reached a status. When they go to heaven, even in heaven, there are elevations. You can work hard and elevate yourself. So this khamr that talks about in various verses is purely metaphorical use of language to indicate that when you drink this liquid, whatever it is so intoxicating spiritually that you go out of your own feeling. And similar to what happens to you if you were to drink this liquid on earth, or different liquid on earth. Again, I strongly recommend go to Al-Mizan. Marhum Allama Tabatabai talks about this. No, there is no khamr, this khamr. There is no this khamr. No, this khamr. Inshallah. Allah will take you there even if there is no such khamr. Inshallah. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you for coming this evening. Inshallah we'll see you all tomorrow evening, same time, 8 p.m.
And prepare a few questions.